Hello everybody and welcome. Thank you for joining us today as we are live from the Batcave. My name is Joel and this is my co-host.
My name is Nathan, or Nate. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Yeah, you can use either of those. I like to call him Film Form. no. He has another channel called Film Form Studios, but he is the co-host of this podcast today. So we've got a couple of sections on this podcast that we're going to be doing. First of all, we'll just introduce ourselves and just say what's going on with our lives at the start of the podcast every time, and then after that we will move on to the news and all the geekdom, fandom news around the nerd sphere, and we're going to call that. I forgot what were you going to call that, Nathan?
Word on the web.
Word on the web. That is correct.
Word on the web.
Word on the web. A little Spider-Man pun for you there. Nathan loves Spider-Man if you check out his other channel. So word on the web, and we will check all the news about the Marvel, DC films, such as other nerdy films, like Zombieland and the James Bonds and all the other stuff. And then a final segment that we currently have planned until we have more viewers. We have a weekly watch, so we're going to be watching something weekly, and the viewers can watch the same movie with us and then find out what we think, because we're both filmmakers, about the film and sort of our goods and critiques and our ups and our downs. And it'll mostly be nerdy films because we love nerdy films. It won't just be films. Also, we'll do a couple of episodes of TV and different series, but we will tell you every week what we're watching. So
any form of visual motion media.
Yeah, exactly. So do you want to move on to the news, Nath?
Let's move on to the news.
What is the word on the web? So I've got a couple of different news things. Have you got anything that's specifically jumping out at you at the moment that you're dying to tell me about the news?
Not necessarily dying to tell you as in it's something that's extremely brand new to a specific, let's say, franchise, but a lot of things are getting delayed. And of course, I think it was just today they announced, well, I'm not sure if it was just today, but basically, as some people probably know, John Wick 4 and Matrix 4 were meant to come out on the same day. Now, they've both been delayed, but I think they're now delayed to different days.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not sure what's going down with that.
Both Keanu.
Yeah, both Keanu Reeves, and it's weird
were
because...
Were they already filmed, both of those films? I don't think so, because I think
they were both scheduled for next year.
They've only got one of the Matrix people back for the Matrix 4, right? It's only one of the twins.
Well, this is the thing, they were both scheduled for next year, so obviously they would have filmed this year, but since Keanu would have to work on both films,
yeah,
you'd think that they'd have to try and stretch it out somehow, but I honestly don't know how they would have done it and still released it next year. So I'm assuming this year they were going to start filming.
Right, yeah. I don't know if they're twins or like husband and wife or brother and sister or whatever, but the people who make the Matrix, only one of them's come back to make the Matrix 4. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. But I didn't even know John Wick 4 was coming out. That's how much I know. I've never sat through a John Wick film,
I've watched John Wick 1 or just John Wick supposedly, I suppose, John Wick, I did enjoy it, but the trouble is, I always say, I really liked something, but then there's me saying, I really liked something, and then immediately watching the sequel, and then there's me really liking something, which I watched, I think, mid last year, and I still haven't seen 2 and 3, and I have all 3 on Blu-ray,
right.
I still haven't watched 2 and 3, and I've marked that down to time, but at the same time, I've watched so many things and immediately watched sequels because of how much I liked it.
Yeah, well, you've got that calendar, haven't you? You've got a calendar you're going through.
I have a 100 movies bucket list, and I had already seen around 6 or 7 on there, but all of them were really classic. So I've been going through that recently, and I've been indulging in a lot of Tarantino. I finally finished the original Star Wars series. So it's only really the prequels that I haven't seen. Dark Knight trilogy I finally finished, and also
Finally finished. Jesus, we're live from the Batcave, and you've
Yeah,
only
I
just
know.
seen the Dark Knight trilogy. Oof.
I keep coming in to watch it, but I get drenched with water every time I enter through the blinking cave, so I am not being funny.
Right. Yeah.
It kind of distracts me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
I almost ran over Alfred the other day. Yeah. Nearly
Bro.
reversed straight into him.
I'm not being funny. He's hanging about whatever he likes. It's not really something you can watch for anymore.
No, exactly. He's a creepy crawly though. He's ducking and dodging. I want to be frank though. It's not because I didn't enjoy the film. I was sitting through the first one. In fact, I think it was the first one. It was like 2014 or something like that. I was watching the first film, and I was in the cinema, and then the person I was with got really, really ill. I won't name any names because I don't want them knowing they ruined my experience. No, I'm joking. But yeah, they got really ill, and then we had to leave. And I was really angry because I left my Tango Ice Blast behind, and I'm a sucker for a Tango Ice Blast. I know.
I'm not being funny. It doesn't matter how much you love someone. You do not sacrifice nothing for a Tango Ice Blast. What flavour was it? Do you remember the exact flavour?
It was cherry and raspberry mixed.
Bro.
I know. It was raspberry on the bottom.
Bro. Oh, okay.
I know.
No, I don't know who this person is, but
but they need
they
out of the door.
they need to know that you appreciate them to the point where your Tango Ice Blast got left behind, because that's big boy moves.
Yeah, that is.
That's a hero.
It takes a lot. So yeah, there's so many delays going on. Talking about delays, all the Marvel movies have been delayed like a one slate back, right? So they're like where Black Widow was supposed to come out, that's coming out now. Where the Eternals was supposed to come out, and now the Eternals is coming.
Yeah,
out
everything's pushed back.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. Well, Spider-Man 3, even though it wasn't like officially announced when they announced Marvel Phase 4, Spider-Man 3, Sony's deal is that a Spider-Man film comes out every other year. Kind of
Right.
like that's kind of like how films work anyway nowadays. It's either like a film every other or every 2 years.
We only get the
sequel.
one film every 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course that means that Spider-Man 3 would have had to come out in 2021, where in reality that really can't happen now. And also the whole idea of these films leading up to 2023 was that they all took place in 2023, and then once they got to 2023 then they could move forward. But now things are looking to be 2024.
There was rumours with the Spider-Man 3 as well, because we've got so many rumours based around like Venom and Spider-Man and stuff. There was rumours that in Spider-Man there was supposed to be a lawyer character, and the pushbacks have actually helped that to spawn some rumours that they've changed the lawyer character, and Marvel are in talks to get the actor from the Netflix series back who played Daredevil, and get Daredevil in the MCU in Spider-Man 3. So
See,
that would be
I like
amazing.
that. That would be great. Because I never really watched the Netflix shows. Like, I'd seen bits and bobs of them, but I couldn't necessarily get into them as much as I wanted to.
No. Yeah.
But Daredevil, from what I've seen, like, there was some sick fight scenes in that show.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
even though I never watched it, I do feel like it for them to all, like, Infinity War came out, and then suddenly they were like, okay, these Netflix shows are going. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty much what happened. Like,
Well,
I'm not saying it
it
had any
was
relation to Infinity War.
Marvel had a big change up, and the person who was in charge of Marvel TV stepped down or was fired. I can't quite remember. And then Marvel TV changed. So, like, all the stuff that was on Netflix, they were like, well, that's getting axed, and we can't keep it on Netflix. And to, send it over to Disney Plus would just be awkward. So they just axed the shows. And then they were like, let's make a bunch of new shows for Disney Plus, which half of them have they're all coming out and stuff like that. But then half of the shows that were... going to be on like HBO or Netflix, half of them have got cancelled. One of my favourite filmmakers, and someone me and Nathan both love, Kevin Smith, was working on It was
Howard the Duck.
Howard the Duck, yeah, Howard the Duck. But it was animated. It was an animated series, and I thought that was amazing. But I think that's been axed as well. So that's.
I think
so
that has been
unfortunate.
cancelled. Yeah.
But I mean, with all these cancellations and stuff like that, it is getting weird. This is an announcement that I thought that's quite on topic right now. We might be losing a lot of Disney and Marvel stuff from Netflix, but HBO Max, the new DC streaming service, and HBO and Warner Brothers, of course, is announcing really cool stuff. So obviously we know there's a Green Lantern TV show coming to HBO Max and a bunch of other DC shows, I think. But now we've just got Justice League Dark as a HBO show coming.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. I watched the Justice League Dark animated movies, and they were amazing. I really loved them. So that would be something that's so interesting to come to HBO Max. And it would give us another life for Swamp Thing, because I think Swamp Thing was cancelled way too early. That was an amazing show.
Well, this is the thing. Before, obviously, for anyone who hasn't seen Crisis on Infinite Earths, the ending kind of shows other... Yeah, spoilers. I think I think these should just come with spoiler warnings anyway.
Yeah. I think you should have seen Crisis by now.
They kind of showed other worlds. And, we see Green Lantern, a Green Lantern world, and that... there was talks for the either film/TV show, it wasn't confirmed at the time, of Green Lantern Corps. And I think that was back in 2016, but then that really never came to light.
So in 2020,
but then obviously we had this TV show.
Yeah, in 2020 there was supposed to be a Green Lantern Corps movie, and then that movie was changed into a television show. For this, and then it was pitched to the CW. They looked at budgets and whether they could do it justice and stuff like that. They were like, this is not something that we can have him in the suit all the time, which is what you need for a Green Lantern show. So CW, CBS, all of the people at the time that were making DC shows, they were not willing to fund it. And then eventually the DC streaming service, all of Titans and all of that started coming around. There was more talks about it there. But then again, it was a bit of a big amount of money for just DC streaming. But now HBO Max has come around and they're throwing money about all over the place. So it was confirmed that this is coming.
That is a little something that worries me, just because obviously Supergirl started off on, was it CBS?
CBS, yeah, they were making Supergirl
and then
at the time.
They did the crossover. And then after that, she went to CW, and it wasn't until Crisis that they were like, okay, Supergirl's Earth is now the same as the Flash's Earth.
Yeah, so
whereas
they kept
the
her on a
Flash,
separate Earth for a long time, even though she joined the CW. That was because CBS dropped Supergirl as well, I think. They weren't doing enough numbers on CBS.
Well, see, this is the thing. But eventually, they combined the worlds through Crisis. But with Green Lantern, first of all, it's going to be HBO. And spoiler alert, HBO is not CW. But
no.
Since season 1 of The Flash, we've had Ferris Air, and we've had there was this one Easter egg or something where a guy who walked past camera and he had a jacket that says Hal Jordan or something along those lines.
There's been
and now
it
kind of feels like but now it just kind of feels like if they are doing Green Lantern, he's not going to be part of that main universe, or if he is, he's going to be like what Supergirl used to be of, we got to cross Earth, so go to a different planet to get him, as opposed to...
Yeah, so...
we could just give him a call.
It's, again, still going to be the Green Lantern Corps. I don't think this is just going to be based on Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart or... we've already got a Jon Stewart in the CW universe. We've got John Diggle, whose name through his stepfather is Jon Stewart. And we've got those kinds of people, but I don't think they are going to cross over that much. I think what they showed in Crisis of Infinite Earths was actually footage from the movie, the Ryan Reynolds failed movie.
It was,
yeah.
It was.
But I don't think they're going to cross over at all, and I think that's a good idea for now. Keep the lower budget stuff and the higher budget stuff a little bit separate, not too much. I liked what they did with the Ezra Miller Flash in the Crisis.
Well, that was cool, because that was the only scene in the entire Crisis that was shot in like movie definition, so that was shot like
Yeah, it was
with the
like
cameras
on an
they used
Ariel
to,
or something like that.
as opposed to, and it was like it was like the black bars. It was like full on
Yeah.
movie production quality just for that one scene with Ezra Miller.
Yeah, and I like that, and I think they should do that more. Just keep the universes separate, have little winks towards each other's, but like we've got a new Batman. That new Batman's not going to be in the same universe as our old Aquaman and our old Wonder Woman. They're still sticking around, but they aren't going to be in the same universe for a very long time. So that means the show's universes don't need to be in the same universes either. Just give us a good show rather than a connected show. We don't need another MCU. We've got the MCU. We just need you to take DC's characters and give us interesting stories with that intellectual property.
But see, that's why I feel like, because obviously, if things had gone to plan, which they didn't, last year, we were meant to see the Flash movie, which obviously was possibly going to change. Like, they're going to do Flashpoint, and, they're going to change, like, Ben Affleck's Batman and all that. But now we can't see that. We've seen Ezra Miller in
Well, the Flash movie is
Crisis.
still Flashpoint, the new one.
Yeah, but when's that coming out? It still hasn't got a director, has it?
So they're working on it actively, and I think the thing is that that's a movie they can't drop, right? I think that's a movie that they can't just scrap, because it's going to fix everything that Justice League and and Batman versus Superman, the bad cuts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Ruined for the thing. It's not a completely horrible universe, but it's definitely not the DC universe we should have started with.
Well, it's
killing
crazy
Superman
because
in one of the what is like third or fourth appearance is ridiculous. It was a bad run for
wasn't it
DC.
his second appearance?
Man of Steel, then Batman vs Superman.
vs. Superman.
Yeah, second appearance. You're right there.
And then resurrected in his third.
Yeah, that's so.
Because don't forget as well, we were supposed to get Justice League. Justice League 2 last year as well.
Yeah, there was no way they were doing that after the critics tore apart Justice League.
Well, that perfect opportunity for the Snyder Cut, but I'll say no more.
Yeah, no, say no more about the Snyder Cut. Very mixed opinions there. But I think, I'm all for diversity also, but calling it Justice League Dark, whew. No, I'm joking, of course. But it's like, I can't wait for Justice League Dark, because it is more diverse as well, as a cast. It's a sort of thing where you've got John Constantine, and like people like Swamp Thing, and Deadman. If they don't give us Deadman and the Justice League Dark team, I will be I'll be so upset. A little like deep dive from the comics. I'd say like third favorite comic book event ever is in the Injustice universe, when Nightwing, who has died, becomes Deadman and has his powers and becomes a ghost. And it's amazing that stories like that that are spawned from the magical version of DC, the sort of John Constantine, Swamp Thing, Dr. Fate, those sort of people. I love that. Zatanna, Zatara. With the Justice League movies that we've got, I think it's going to be so different. I think they're going to go balls to the wall weird with the HBO Max series, because they see that it works, right? James Gunn took Guardians of the Galaxy, which is by no means a popular comic book. It's a popular franchise now, but it was never the most popular comic book team up, and turned that into a cult classic film.
I would argue that
Go on.
Guardians of the Galaxy is literally one of Marvel's, I was gonna say down to earth, which is really not, but at the same time, like, it is. Like, it's so...
It's grounded because it shows you the human element in all of the different aliens, right? You get to see, because they're all humanoid aliens, you get to see the human element in everyone, and it is grounded in that way. But also, Guardians of the Galaxy is so strange. If you look at films, just normal cinema, you watch The Godfather, and then you watch Guardians of the Galaxy, it's...
Well, it's like, if you show if you show someone Iron Man 1 and then you show someone Guardians of the Galaxy 2, it's like,
Yeah.
Iron Man 1 can be your favourite if you want, but that scene where they're jumping through all those hyperdrive portals and their faces are just getting distorted, like,
Yeah.
you can't do that in Iron Man.
No, and like,
And granted,
and Taika
like,
Waititi
it wasn't needed,
also,
but
Taika Waititi with Thor Ragnarok, taking Thor, who'd had a bad run before that, right? Because he had, Thor, which was, just a standard film, and like, it was okay. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't the greatest MCU film. And then he did really well in Avengers. People loved him in Avengers. But then, like, Dark World was, really badly received. And to take that film, Dark World, which people thought was maybe too gritty or too dark or, not enough substance to it, and then just throw him into a Technicolor world with the Hulk and, fun characters like Korg, he went weird with it and it worked. And that's what I'm hoping from the DC shows now, because they've showed in Doom Patrol, I don't know if you've watched Doom Patrol, weird works.
yeah, well, exactly, like, especially with Thor Ragnarok, it was such a slap in the face change. Like, nobody could have, like, expected Dark World going to that.
No.
But I'm so glad it did, because otherwise there wouldn't be a Thor 4. There wouldn't be Love and Thunder.
No,
which
I
again,
don't think so
as you know, I'm not a big fan of that name, but
yeah, I love it,
granted.
and I love the title sequence because it looks so He-Man, and I'm a massive fan of Masters of the Universe as well.
I love the way it looks, and I'm genuinely really excited for this film. But there's just something about the name Love and Thunder. It just, to me, it sounds too, not basic, but like Ragnarok, and then
Yeah.
like it sounds cool, but it just doesn't.
Well,
I don't really know how to express
with
it.
Love and Thunder, I think they've called it that for various reasons, right? Jane Foster's back, for one, right? Pretty sure she's going to be Thor in it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they're doing that. Whether it's going to be the comic story where she gets cancer, or whether it's going to be some other reason. Maybe Thor gets the Odin Force and can pass the Thor mantle down to her.
Well, here's a thing. I seen a theory somewhere, and it was basically saying that it was basically like, who can lift Thor's hammer, and it showed Odin putting like the secret spell on it, and it's like, only if he be worthy may he wield the hammer. Nothing's mentioned about a she, and a female has also never attempted to pick up Mjolnir on
Black Widow has
in the MCU. She hasn't.
She
But in
had.
the MCU.
I think it's a deleted scene, but it did. All of them have that were in that room at the end of Ultron.
Well, in Age of Ultron, in the actual film, you have her saying, "Oh no, that's not a question I need answering."
Right. Okay. So it's definitely a deleted scene then. But there was like a thing where they had like everyone. They had like everyone try to pick up the hammer.
Okay.
It's one of those things where you could do that, but are you gonna when there's so many things in the comics that could explain this, especially with the fact that you're trying to make this film. Apparently there was reported that he was saying, this film's going to be so weird that you could just like ask a 10-year-old what they wanted in a film and he could chuck it in there, but it would be good. He would make it good. Do you know what I mean?
Well, bro, like, literally, the whole "he's a friend from work" line was from like a kid who was on set, and that's probably one of like the most like iconic moments in the film. Was, or the most the one you remember most is, "Oh, I know him. He's a friend from work."
Yeah, he's a friend from work. I liked that line when that came out. Well, one of my favorite lines from the Marvel films was when I think it was in the first Avengers film maybe, and it was like, it was that Iron Man line. Do you remember which line it is?
Towards Thor. Is it Point Break?
No, it's I think it's between Captain America and Iron Man.
Is it when they're in the forest, or is it?
No, I don't. Yeah, I can't quite remember.
Everything
It's-
super about you came from a bottle.
It's like I'm a billionaire or whatever.
Oh, you're a big man in a suit of armor. Take that off for a genius billionaire playboy philanthropist.
That I loved
That.
that
Yeah.
was one of my favorite lines.
It's funny as well if you watch the Avengers like animated show on Disney XD. They
Avengers
show
Assemble?
that scene again. Yeah,
Yeah.
they kind of recreate that scene and they just have him say genius billionaire philanthropist. I was like, I see what you did. You're making that PG. You're taking out the Playboy.
I see you, Disney. So while we're talking about Marvel as well, and we're talking about the weirdest thing that's coming next from Marvel, I think, is Doctor Strange, the second Doctor Strange film. This is going to be
If
crazy.
anyone has spoken to me recently, they know that out of all the films, I am Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness is what I am most hyped for.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's going to tie in with WandaVision. I love Wanda Maximoff as a character, especially in the comics. In the comics, her story is ridiculous, and I love it. I love it to pieces. A thing about Doctor Strange is we've just found out that Sam Raimi is definitely directing Doctor Strange right now.
Yeah, it was rumored for so long,
Yeah.
but then it wasn't that long ago that they were like, yeah, Sam Raimi is directing.
Which fits for him, to be honest, because like he's done stuff like this before. Like, not exactly, but comedy and horror together, sort of.
Well, yeah, they said like this is going to be the first one that's kind of like a horror film.
Yeah, which is weird
sorts.
because they were like a horror film, and that's the thing. So it was rumored that the previous director of the film left because of conflicts to do with the level of horror that could be displayed. Because Marvel and Kevin Feige has literally said this is going to be PG-13, and if it's horror but PG-13, you know, not an attempt to be offensive or anything, but that's like, you know, a bit silly. Having a child-friendly horror film to me is like having a wheelchair-friendly running shoes. Like, it doesn't make sense.
But I get what you're saying, because like every single horror film that I've seen, it's been rated R or like rated 15. So like you can't really, because like it's not even about like the Fs and the Bs. It's just like if something is like scary enough to make you, because like you can get jump scares in a PG-13, right? But to have them be constant and to have people thinking, oh
I
my
don't
god,
know
I'm
if you
genuinely
can.
scared in my seat.
I don't know.
I
If
mean,
you can. I
said-
think maybe you can get away with one.
Well, if for example, it's like in Endgame when they put in the stones into the gauntlet and like rockets, like boom, like that made
Yeah.
everyone in my cinema like jump. Do you know what I mean? That's I mean, like even
I
though it's not
get
horror,
you.
that's classed as a jump scare. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But like
I get
it's the
you.
extent of what they can do. Like a horror needs to have more than one.
What I'm thinking is, just break down horror as a genre. It's a genre of film that attempts to scare the audience in order to provoke, you know, a pleasurable experience, but in order to provoke emotions within them, and audiences watch them to get scared, right? Kids don't watch films to be scared. That's what gets
They're
me.
aren't they making Blade rated R?
See, I hope so. I very much hope so. They've got like a Oscar-nominated actor, or maybe an Oscar-winning actor. I think is the Oscars, one of the prestigious awards, either nominated or won. And he's really, really good. Exactly the type of person you'd want to be playing Blade. I don't see how they can mess this up. But again, with the PG stuff can make Blade go one of two ways. Either they can make it really good, because Marvel have a way of making stuff PG and still making it great. Do you know what I mean? Like, it
Personally, okay, for Blade, I know they won't do this, but I feel like if they're gonna make a PG, if they're gonna make it a rated R, and to do it right, I honestly think, and even though there's loads of great directors, I think bring Joe and Anthony Russo back and have them do Blade.
I don't
even
know
though they
about that.
haven't, like, I was just gonna say only because in the 4 films they have done, it's been the most kind of character building I've seen in any Marvel films, other than possibly Iron Man. But by the time we get to Iron Man 3, it's kind of
Yeah.
it starts a new kind of, so like from Iron Man 3 to Endgame, he's always been him suffering with like mental health, realistically, okay.
Yeah.
But you didn't have that in Iron Man 1 and 2, so it's kind of like that as a film series didn't follow a consistent story. It was like Iron Man 1 and 2 kind of followed the same story, and then Iron Man 3 was like, oh, he's after Avengers, he's a different person now.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but just for the trilogy, it's inconsistent.
You know who needs to direct Blade for me? And this is going to be a real weird pick, but like, go with me on it. Because
Kevin James.
No. Kevin James. That's such a niche thing. The person that needs to direct Blade for me is Edgar Wright. Because he can do funny horror, and he can make it R-rated, and he can make it non-R-rated. I think whatever way they choose to go, Edgar Wright could be a really interesting pick for this, because we've seen from Shaun of the Dead that you can have a main character that is hilarious and also have really good action. You know what I mean? And I don't always think the Blade is hilarious, but we've seen Wesley Snipes play Blade, and I think if you're going that sort of route with him, he cracks jokes, and the Edgar Wright whip hands, the heavy action sequences, I think they really lend themselves to Blade, because Blade is all about action.
Heavy action scenes, completely agree. In terms of the whip hands, honestly, I was going to say Scott Pilgrim and the Cornetto trilogy, they all have similar transition. Well, I say similar, the same transition styles. Obviously, Scott Pilgrim is a lot more over the top.
Yeah.
But they all have the similar transition styles. I feel like for Blade, an Edgar Wright action scene, definitely. Edgar Wright whip hands and like Edgar Wright composition, I don't know how I feel.
Yeah, but I think he would be able to do it in a way that isn't for comedic effect, right? He sometimes uses the whip hands for comedic effect and for two people to have a conversation, and to break that up with, something that lets the movie flow together. But I don't think he'd be using the whip hands in that way for Blade. And like, even if he doesn't use them at all, right, I still think Edgar Wright is very capable of making a film that is action heavy but light-hearted. Do you know what I mean? Blade is a vampire slayer, so
yeah,
if you take Shaun of the Dead or any of the Cornetto trilogy, really, and then replace Simon Pegg with Blade and replace the zombies with vampires, yeah, it's still too funny, but tone down the funny.
Keep Nick Frost.
And build up the action. Yeah, keep Nick Frost, of course. Build up the action. And, you could see the balance being shifted and him doing really well with that. I know it's a niche pick because a lot of people see him as someone who can make funny films, right? But I think his action is what makes his funny films stand out, because he does things so well that you forget he's doing that really well. You know what I mean? You're like, oh yeah, he's a great director, those films are so funny. But what you've forgotten about him is that the action sequences in all his films are top quality, supreme.
I mean, yeah, no, I don't disagree with you, honestly. In terms of, I can see what you're trying to say. For me, it's generally just, again, the action scenes for him would be phenomenal, and even the story, even though like that is more so down to the writers, there's always like a director say, regardless of anything.
But also he's written stuff, right? So
yeah.
Doesn't he have like a writing credit on Ant-Man as well?
Does he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he
may
does.
He does.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm recalling correct.
He's done a screenplay for it. I don't know whether it's the screenplay that they used, but he's still credited. So I think they've used at least elements.
Yeah.
So he's not allergic to Marvel either, right?
But at the same time, do we want Blade looking like Ant-Man?
No. That's not what I'm saying. But he didn't direct Ant-Man.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between the screenwriter and the director. I think there's so many people that could direct Blade, but for me, Edgar Wright would be such a niche, and I think he would slay that, and I think that would open up a lot of things for Blade in the future. Like you could do more action. You could do more action-based stuff, like the people who direct John Wick could do Blade as well later on. But I just think Edgar Wright is just, for me, within the Marvel universe, if they connect it all, I think Blade being doing Edgar Wright, that would be great. Another piece of news, if you don't have anything to slot in, do you have anything to slot in before I jump to the next one?
No, bro, go for it.
Comic-Con has been cancelled. San Diego Comic-Con has been cancelled for the first time in 50 years. So
it has.
That is. Well, I mean, it's great news because we need to adhere to the new normal, right, during the ongoing pandemic. But it also sucks not having Whole H, right? Whole H is what I look forward to. The announcements and stuff.
That's the thing. It's because they haven't announced any like virtual version, have they?
No, they haven't announced any virtual things. Not as recording this, as of recording this.
Because I guess that it kind of makes sense just because anything that they would have announced has been pushed back as well.
Yeah,
but I mean, I'm glad they did cancel it because
because people are going to get ill and people would be going to that no matter what. There are die-hard fans out there.
Yeah, exactly. So that I'm glad they did it, but at the same time, I mean, obviously that doesn't affect my life because there's no chance that I could have gone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
it did affect us because London and Cardiff's Comic-Con. In the UK, the two big ones in the UK have been cancelled also. But
I mean, it's not really something you can play. All hit. Well, they didn't have one. They didn't have one. Not last year. They didn't have one the year before. They didn't have one around.
Right, the Marvel slate didn't have one. No. But it's not just about that, right? Whole H is the big hole.
Well, no, yeah, of course, yeah, no. It's only because I was specifically talking about like I watch for the Marvel announcements like primarily, and then whatever news comes up, then I'm like, oh shoot, that's cool.
Well, our one of our favorite filmmakers ever had a Whole H panel. Kevin Smith, I believe, last year had a Whole H panel, even though he was doing the IMD vote. So the fact that he had the big stage for Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, that was great. Yeah, I look forward to most of the people that turn up at Whole H every year. But yeah, you're right. The Marvel slate is the biggest one, right? So as someone who has recently watched, is it all of the Star Wars now, or are you missing some still?
I have not watched episodes 2 and 3. I have not watched Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith.
Okay, right, fair enough. But you've watched all of the original trilogy now, right?
All of the original, unfortunately, whether it's unfortunate, I don't know, but it is the kind of revamped version, so it is the version that was remade after the prequels, so it is kind of different to the originals, I believe.
Right.
But yeah, I'm up to date. I've seen episodes 4, 5, and 6, and I've seen episodes 7, 8, and 9.
So a fun thing about that is I can tell you, you're going to start watching The Mandalorian soon, aren't you?
I am. I've been wanting to try and finish all of Star Wars first, but again, whether
I think you can watch it now. Realistically, I don't think you need to watch those two to be watching The Mandalorian.
Well, I've seen what I've seen what happens to Boba Fett.
Yeah.
As like a bounty hunter. Does he show up in the prequels?
So Boba Fett's got a father called Jango Fett. Okay. And he's more prominent in the prequels. But the thing about Boba Fett and Jango Fett is technically they both aren't real Mandalorians.
Right.
They wear Mandalorian armor, but that doesn't make them Mandalorians, and they are technically both not real Mandalorians, I believe, because they've broken the code or something similar. But anyway, the Mandalorian is such a self-contained sort of thing. There are Easter eggs to all of the different Star Wars properties, but you don't need to have watched or read or been a part of all of them in order to get what's going on in The Mandalorian. It's quite a simple story.
But another thing, though, is that isn't a lot of Yoda's... obviously, Yoda isn't in it, but we've got, Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
But apparently, well, I've been told there's a lot to learn about Yoda, which helps knowing about the species of
so
the
there's
infant.
there's not much we know about Yoda species. There's only 2.
Is there not?
No, so there's only 2 to known exist. There is Yoda and Yaddle, which is a female version of Yoda, basically. And those are the only 2 we know that exist of Yoda species.
Is she in the prequels, or is that in the...
I believe, yes. I believe she's in the Jedi Council, which at the time of the the normal Star Wars, not the prequels, I think they're disbanded at some point. But she's part of a Jedi Council. And those are the only 2 that we know of Yoda's race at all. We know nothing about Yaddle. The only things we know about Yoda are from the Star Wars movies, and we don't find out very much about them. We know they live for a very long time.
Yeah.
But that's about
I
it.
gathered that.
So I think The Mandalorian might be the way that we find out more about Yoda's species through this series. I think it's being done.
Do we not
really
even
well.
know? Do we not? So obviously, Baby Yoda is what everyone's calling him, her, it, them.
Yes.
Um,
but it's not actually Baby Yoda.
Is it actually as? Do we know the actual infant's name?
No,
or is
because
it just...
it's a baby.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have no idea. It's just infant of Yoda's species, but
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know much about it. Pretty sure the Mandalorian is based somewhere in the Star Wars universe. So it's not a prequel to the prequels, and it's I think it might just be a prequel to.
It's just happening somewhere.
Yeah, it's happening somewhere sometime
along,
in the Star Wars saga. But The Mandalorian, which is really exciting. So this is the new news. You have yet to start season 1. They have yet to release season 2, but due to the new technology that The Mandalorian is using to film this sort of stuff, they have already begun production on season 3.
Yeah, so I've seen that Corridor Digital video.
Yeah.
Where they kind of show off the tech, where it's like the camera is.
They can literally, they can literally and have literally created an entire season in one room. They can create the whole of The Mandalorian in that singular room.
So, is season 2 complete?
Well, they've started production on season 3, so all I can assume is it's near completion.
Well, UK Disney Plus, last time I checked, only has 2 chapters or something.
So UK Disney Plus is very slow for The Mandalorian. I watched it on the US's version. Through not our sponsor today, NordVPN. No, not sponsored, but I watched it through there. But we're getting it slowly. I believe it's they're releasing it every week or every month or something like that. But the Mandalorian season 2, all of the Mandalorian season 1 has been out for a while in America. But
exactly, I think that's why I'd rather watch it all. I'd rather be able to binge watch it than watch 2, and then because if the next one comes out, then I'm gonna be now not that I don't remember, but I watched the first 2 a while ago, and even if I watch this, I gotta wait another month for the next one.
Such as myself, you like to binge shows.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, I'm
just because I can keep up the pace then.
Yeah, I'm very much the same with that. I love to just keep the story going, and sometimes I'll even binge, like if it's an hour per episode with like Supernatural. I'm a massive fan of Supernatural. They're like 45-minute episodes, so I'll watch like 5 on a binge session, realize I have to sleep, wake up the next morning, do what I have to do, you know, brush my teeth, shower, all of that stuff, and then go back straight to watching it again. And it's like, I'll binge stuff like that as well.
It's like earlier when I was gonna see if I could watch Chernobyl. Like I seen that there was like 6 episodes and they were all an hour, but I was fully prepared to watch 6 hours of the show.
Yeah, well, I'm a massive
Obviously,
fan of podcasts,
you know.
hence why we created this one. Live from the Batcave, everybody. What's it like in here, Nathan? What's it like?
It's dark. It's cold. It's damp. Like there's redeeming qualities.
It doesn't sound
like,
very
it looks
redeeming.
badass.
The Batcave sounds pretty bad.
I've got a thermal coat on and
Right.
shorts, so I think it's my bad.
Right.
But
yeah. I think maybe. I think what we need to have a big word with the big man Bruce. I mean, big man Batman, and see if we can get some
Big man Batman.
Heaters and air conditioning in here. So hence why I started this podcast. I love podcasts, and podcasts can go for like 2 hours. Joe Rogan's podcasts last ridiculous lengths, but if I like the guest on them, I'll definitely watch them all the way through. Like, I'm a massive fan of stand-up comedy. I try to dabble in it myself sometimes, but unfortunately not so successful. But when a stand-up comic goes on Joe Rogan, I'm watching it, no matter if it's a 3-hour podcast or not.
Well, see, I only really got into podcasts when I met you, but I used to watch Hawk Talk, that is my Hawk podcast, and I used to love that. Like, I'd be there every Tuesday, I'd be on that.
Yeah.
And it was just, like, there's been so many episodes where, like, they've just, like, mentioned, well, I say mentioned, but, like, answered a question that I've asked or something. Like, I loved it. And then they stopped that. Well, they changed it a bunch first, and then they stopped it. And I was like, damn. But then I did a Corridor cast, and then I'd watch I like every now and again I'd watch Butch Hartman's podcast, and then obviously you introduced me to Kevin Smith.
And
Kevin Fat Man Beyond is my favourite podcast at this point.
Yeah, I love Kevin Smith. I love all of his podcasts. I've tried them all out. The original Smodcast is great. My 2 favourites, Fat Man Beyond, which is the newer version of Fat Man on Batman that they used to do with him and Mark Bernardin. And then I love Hollywood Babylon with him and Ralph Garman, because I also love Ralph Garman and his Ralph Report. So I love Kevin Smith and his films, but also just him as a person, and it's fascinating to listen to him and Mark speak about comic book news and stuff like that. So I watched both of those podcasts. I introduced you to Fat Man Beyond, did I not, Nathan?
Bro, you introduced me to View Askew as a whole. Like I had seen Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and I had known of Mallrats, but other than that, oblivious to who created it. The fact that Silent Bob was literally the director. But also I knew of Kevin Smith as kind of like a YouTube guy.
Right.
So it's like, oh, he's done reviews, and also he's directed some episodes of The Flash. I seen him. He did, for example, the IMDb Boat, and I knew of him definitely, but I never really knew who he was. And of course, when he had his heart attack, it was like everywhere on all the comic book sites, and I was like, oh, this guy's the director of The Flash. Oh, that's unfortunate. Obviously, I had no connection. But then we went to see Reboot. On like the only night he was showing in Wales, and bro, like, even though that was View Askew fan service, so I barely understood the references.
Yeah, very much.
I enjoyed that was a film, because obviously I knew of Justice from Strike Back and stuff like that, so it was like the story I was able to follow along.
Yeah.
But then going back and watching the films after seeing Reboot, being like, oh, that's what it was. Oh, you know what I mean? It was a wholesome experience.
Yeah. The fact that I found out that you'd never watched Clerks, I was like, of course he's never watched Clerks, because it's such a niche thing. But then I just think to myself, everyone must have watched Clerks, because to me it's like it's one of the reasons that I got into filmmaking.
Yeah, bro.
I assume it, and then when someone like you, a good friend of mine, comes along and says, "Hey, I've never watched this film," I'm like, "Okay, okay, here we go, down the rabbit hole we go." But yeah, he's so great. But yeah, we're a lover of a podcast. I've forgotten what I was originally saying there, but just podcast love, I guess. So here's some new news. I don't know if this is a rumor or whether this is something that studios are actually looking into, but do you know the anime One Punch Man?
I know of it, and I have seen about 3 episodes a long time ago.
Right. I've seen all of One Punch Man. Very big fan. The guy that writes the original webtoon and manga of it, because it wasn't originally a manga, it was a webtoon and then it was a manga, called One. He also writes Mob Psycho. I've followed his work for a while, and I really like One Punch Man. One of my favourite things ever. But apparently there's talks of it being turned into a Hollywood movie. So not even like an Asian movie, not even a, Japan does anime adaptations live action. A live action Hollywood version of One Punch Man.
Damn.
Yeah, so that's strange. What do you think of that? Because I think they've tried to do some stuff like that with Ghost in the Shell.
We'll see. It's rich of me to say this because obviously we've seen Man of Steel, but I was going to say it seems like a hard thing to adapt because like this guy is God. I mean, let's be honest.
Well, he's not exactly God, but he is a man that has a very specific weird power, which is he can defeat anyone in one punch.
Well, exactly. So it's like, unless Hollywood, which, I mean, let's be honest, probably happen, opens a portal in the sky and this other guy comes out who can also defeat someone in one punch, and therefore they can't defeat each other in one punch, then, like, because otherwise they're going to be like, oh, this guy's doing some bad stuff. All right, just punch him and he's gone.
So the thing is, right, and this is great. So the thing about One Punch Man is it's not all about him. It's about the universe he creates. He's not the only hero. In fact, he has a cyborg sidekick. And his cyborg sidekick is super cool. But he idolizes One Punch Man because One Punch Man can defeat anyone in a punch. Right? But he's still flawed as a character. One Punch Man is still like overly competitive at video games and, just little quirky things. But the world he creates around him is really cool. And I think if they were going to do a Hollywood film, they'd have to capitalize on that, right? The most interesting characters in One Punch Man aren't One Punch Man. They're the people around him. And there's always a new villain that gets One Punch Man excited, right? He's always there's times where he's distracted, there's a catastrophe going on, One Punch Man doesn't even know about it, other heroes have to deal with it. But then sometimes there's like a brand new enemy that One Punch Man's like, maybe finally I can get some challenge out of this person, and then he just defeats him in one punch again. And it's like, oh,
exactly,
for God's sake.
it's like the issue with like heroes, for example, like Superman, like One Punch Man, that are just so OP that it's like,
yeah,
but
it's written really well in the anime, and they have to adapt what's interesting about that story well in Hollywood.
But by what you've just explained to me, and I'm sure this is not the case at all, but what I've gathered from that is One Punch Man is very ignorant to the point where he won't acknowledge like catastrophes, or like he won't even realize because he's so self-obsessed doing something, and then when he does find out, it's like, oh, okay.
So it's more like plot armor. It's more like the plot puts him in a situation where he's off doing something else and he doesn't even know about certain things, right? So a villain will turn up in the middle of the city, but he's at home playing video games with another hero, and then his sidekick Geonosis, I think his name is in the city when the villain drops. So we get to see the story of how Geonosis is going to defeat this villain instead of One Punch Man, who could obviously defeat him because he could defeat him in one punch. So it's not that he's ignorant; he's just stupid. He's just dumb.
Yeah.
And
okay.
it's like he's not the most smart, but he has like moments of really smart stuff. But yeah, it's a very odd thing to want to adapt into a Hollywood film. You know what I mean? I think they could have picked anything, but I think they've gone weird because when they went tame with something that was beloved by all, they failed. Do you remember the Netflix adaptation of Death Note?
I don't.
So there was a Netflix adaptation of one of my favourite anime, Death Note, and it brutalized the original. The original, to me, is something that is... I don't want to say a masterpiece, because that's like, oh my god, nothing can be better than it. It's to me something like one of the best anime that I've watched, or one of the reasons that I like anime so much. And then they made a live action version of it and took everything that was good about it, stripped it away, told the story in an uninteresting way, and changed the good parts into bad parts. And they failed very hard with it. So I think live action Hollywood remakes of anime is going to be really hard. I don't know
Especially
how well Ghost in the
because-
Shell did, though.
Well, here's the thing, see. You know how a big complaint about the live-action Lion King was that they lost a lot of their expressive features?
Yeah.
I feel like a big part of anime is the character design and how the characters look. But if they
I would say that anime is somewhat really good for visual interesting. But with Death Note, again, only one character in that to me is super visually interesting.
Well, have you seen that video by Corridor, the anime fidget spinners?
Yeah. Oh, the anime.
Like
yeah.
Or like the anime like baseball, or they did as well, or something like that. And he was kind of like they did it really well in terms of like, when they have those random cut scenes to like the background is just moving rapidly and they're kind of frozen but moving.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah.
Like they did that really well, and like that's what I think of when someone says anime.
Right. Yeah, well that's a thing. Like something that the audience may not know is I'm very heavily into anime. Nathan, you've not really watched that much of it, have you?
I've seen Spirited Away, and then Pokemon. If that counts, then yeah. But no, other than that.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if Pokemon is an anime, So
I mean, I don't think it is. It's definitely the same kind of style.
Yeah. It's definitely trying to do something similar. I think it is an anime, right? It's animation based off a manga, or is it not because it's based off a video game? I can't quite tell. Either way,
I'm not sure, but yeah.
Either way, I think it's interesting. I think they've got to be very careful about who they cast as One Punch Man. Can't cast Dwayne The Rock Johnson as him. I think there was like a rumor going around that he would play him. Jesus Christ, no. Right, that defeats the whole point of him. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I want to see it. I want to see it happen. I don't want to say, hey, I don't think Hollywood can do this well, so don't do it at all. I want to see how well Hollywood thinks that they can do it, and let us be the judges of whether they should carry on doing that sort of stuff. Because it's already a visual medium, right? So adapting the story for a wider audience is a brave move for something that already has quite a wide audience.
Well, I like anime is one of the biggest.
Yeah.
No matter what form it is, it's one of the biggest forms of like media, and especially with. Like, it'd be so easy for them to make a film based off an anime. And it does insanely well.
Yeah.
And everyone loves it. And they're like, okay, this is the new way forward. And then they just butcher it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's something they're going to have to be careful about.
Would you class Voltron as anime?
Ooh. Well, the new Voltron, yes, but it's a reboot of a different cartoon that wasn't an anime.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think maybe not. I think I'd class the new Voltron The old Voltron definitely not as a cartoon, and I class the new Voltron as a cartoon. But the animation style is influenced by anime.
It's definitely, especially Pidge and Hunk.
Yeah,
they are very much kind of.
See, maybe I'm wrong though,
characters.
because Kevin Smith is currently developing an anime based on He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and it's by the same people who have made the Castlevania anime. Now, both of these things are related to properties that aren't manga, right? They're not animations based on manga. Castlevania is based off the video game Castlevania, and He-Man's based off the original He-Man cartoons. So, in that instance, maybe they are anime.
So it's definitely a very broad.
Yeah,
it really comes down to what you define as anime, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think also depending on the audience, right? Because a lot of dubbed anime, anime that is English, because there is two types, subs and dubs. Anime that is English voice acted can just be seen as cartoons anyway to some people. So, when I first watched something like Naruto or Dragon Ball when I was younger, it was in English, and I was like, this is a really cool cartoon. Jesus Christ, what is this? Adult themes and stuff, and it was super interesting.
Bro, do you want to know is like, well, with that's what I was like with Power Rangers. I was like, damn, this is cool. That came from Japan, and obviously,
Sentai.
I think it's just exactly, and it's like, even though Sentai isn't anime, it's very clear that there are lots of similarities, and that just because obviously America changed it to kind of make it more so not really their culture, but they made it more American based for sure.
Yeah,
like they weren't running around like massive like colourful spaceships and like in pirate outfits in Super Mega Force. They were just idiots.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I absolutely love the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers stuff. The movie, however, ups and downs.
The 2017 or the 95?
The 2017. The 95 movie is basically the same as the TV show, right? Just new new live action film. That wasn't
literally the only differences are the suits are armored, and Tommy says White Tiger instead of Tiger Zord.
Yeah.
And the morphing sequence is in a different order.
Right. But yeah, I'm a massive fan. Like one of the biggest things that I love so much in like nerd culture and stuff is Power Rangers. Top 5 characters that are near and dear to my heart. Alpha 5 is in that top 5. I love Alpha 5 so much. So yeah, and that's another thing that came from Japan. You're right. Another thing that I love that came from Japan, that isn't anime but has got sort of an anime adaptation is Ultraman. That's very Sentai as well, right? That had it. Yeah. So Ultraman's another property. So we've got a lot of news because obviously there's been delays and sort of stuff like that, and everything's coming out. But there's 2 more topics I want to cover from the news. Is there anything? I want to be real quick with these because then we've got to go on to our next segment before we wrap everything up.
Right, well, can I just say I have 20 minutes, bro?
Yeah, I understand. Nathan's got places to be. So what we'll do actually this week, because it's new, we've had a lot of news, and the things with what we were going to go over with what we watched this week isn't very interesting. So we'll save the what we watch for next week, and after we do this news, I'll announce what we're watching next week so everyone can watch along with us. So 3 more things to go over on the news on my side. Is there anything that you've got news-wise?
I have something, but I think I'm going to save it because I feel like we might get an update on it soon, and I'd rather talk about it when we're more in depth with it.
Okay,
so I'm going to leave that for
it's
now.
like a rumour rather than news.
Yeah, but I feel like we're gonna get some official confirmation soon, so I'll let that slide.
Okay, well, it might be something I'm about to say, so who knows? So we've got the Scoob is coming to streaming, which is amazing.
See,
we love Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, literally, it's not even. Yeah, it's not even just Scooby Doo. You got. Oh Christ, what's his name? Dog Wonder. What's the actual name of the show though?
Oh,
You got like Blue Falcon,
the Blue
but
Falcon,
then you got.
and oh yeah.
No, it's something Dog Wonder or.
I know what you're talking about. The Falcon and
Dynamite
basically
Dog
the Go-Go
Wonder.
Gadget dog.
I think it's that.
From the Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
I used to love that. Like I'd never seen much of it because obviously it was a bit before I was born, but like there'd still be reruns, and I really enjoyed that show. And to see like we get in Dynamite and we're getting Blue Falcon in Scoob, it's just crazy.
So yeah, it's the Go-Go Gadget type dog from the Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Pretty much, it's literally Inspector Gadget as a dog.
Yeah. But yeah, that movie Scoob is coming to streaming. So obviously it was supposed to have a theatre release. It now doesn't. Whether that's going to impact whether they make a second one, or whether there's sequels, and whether it's going to impact the box office, I don't know.
Well,
but
honestly,
it's good to
there's so
see
many
that we can
parents
see it.
buying films. There's so many parents like buying films for their kids, or just for them to watch during like quarantine or whatever they're currently doing with their lives.
Yeah.
So I feel like it can still get pretty big. Like, oh, a new Scooby Doo film for my kids. Yes, please, peace and quiet. Have it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. But also, what I think, which is a little bit of the same, is I think sometimes they do that even after they've watched the film, right? So they go to take their kids to see something in the cinema, and then when they come home, they were like, we really loved that film. So then they buy it for them when it comes out on DVD, or they buy it for them online. So sometimes you get a double purchase out of that sort of stuff. But at this point, you'd only be getting a single purchase because it's never coming out originally on that cinema. So
yeah, I mean,
never thought of that. And with streaming, sometimes you might have already had that platform, so you're not really paying for the film if it's going to an already established streaming service. I don't know if it is. I know it's coming for streaming. We might have to buy it rather than it going to a streaming platform, but there are some box office worries with that, but I think it'll be overall okay, because like you said, children's films tend to do better because of adults just
Trolls World Tour did amazing.
Yeah. I saw the numbers for
nobody predicted that.
No, yeah,
no one predicted that, and it did great.
Yeah, and I think stuff like home movies is going to be so important now. For this quarantine thing, because this is another thing, is Christopher Nolan's Tenet, is it called, the film Tenet that's supposed to be coming out?
Ooh,
yeah Tenet.
I think so.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be coming out to theaters, right? And I think he said in June, right? But he's not delayed it. He's not pushed it back. He's adamant that this is going to come out in theatres on June, and he's not pushed the dates back. He doesn't even know whether we're going to be allowed out.
Something
outside.
I can tell you, UK cinemas are closed.
Yeah,
full stop.
Exactly. So he might be crashing and burning that, into the ground because he's not adapting. He's not adapting with the times. So apparently it's according to rumours, it's Christopher Nolan that's keeping firm on the date, and also keeping firm on not releasing it to streaming. So that's interesting.
What a
I know.
Okay, sure.
So two more things. One, Hunger Games prequel movie apparently coming. I don't know the details about this. This is something I saw on comicbookmovie.com. Cite your sources, everybody. But I saw that there are talks of a Hunger Games prequel movie. Now, in my opinion, you can go on a rant about this afterwards. In my opinion, I don't want that. I didn't want that.
I don't want it, bro.
I didn't want the last Hunger Game movies. If I'm honest,
Bro,
they weren't that great.
Mockingjay was like, I seen both of them in cinema. I came out of them and I was like, at the end of the day, it's finished. So
yeah.
But now they're doing prequels. I mean,
I don't even know if there's prequel
really?
books. Like, what are they basing that on? It's like the same thing. Also,
well, I mean, hey,
like,
there wasn't.
when I watched Hunger Games and when I watched Maze Runner, I was like, yeah, they're both based on books, but why are they the same film? Why do they look visually the same?
Star Wars 7, 8, and 9. There was no novel to them, were there?
No.
And Force Awakens, okay, yeah, the people liked it. Last Jedi came out,
yeah,
they wish they had books.
yeah, but yeah, I don't really want that, if I'm honest. But hey ho, I'm guaranteeing that there are some people out there that do want that. And then the last piece of news I've got is Venom has a title. And it is... Go on.
I was just going to say, at this point, I'd prefer if it was called Let There Be Woody Harrelson.
Yeah, so it's called Let There Be Carnage. Isn't that what Woody Harrelson said in the last film? Did he say Let There Be Carnage?
He was like, and when I get out, there will be carnage.
Oh, yeah, that is what he said. You're right about that. Wow,
but I feel like this is the same
early.
issue.
Is this?
This is my same issue with Love and Thunder. It just seems too like Let There Be Carnage. Granted, I like Love and Thunder a lot better than Let There Be Carnage, but it's just so. Yeah. It feels like it feels too much like a movie line. Like you can say like any subtitle can be spoken in a sentence. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
But Let There Be Carnage is so easy for someone to be, Let there be carnage, and then carnage occurs. Just not even a film with like a spunk film.
Yeah.
But just.
No, I agree.
Just a
and
film.
I think sometimes with that film especially, like I'm not saying I'm a better screenwriter than the people who worked on the Venom movies or anything like that. But the Venom movie that I watched, I think maybe there was some conflict with like the screenwriting because the dialogue seemed off to me sometimes. He was saying stuff that just humans don't say, right? And it's like, I get you've got a symbiote in you, but people don't speak like that. And when you're writing versus when you're speaking, it's obvious. It's like you can write the words, I'm going to break your fingers if you don't tell me this. But no one would actually go to someone and be like, I'm going to break your fingers if you don't tell me this. That sounds childish. It'd be like, tell me this, or I'm going to break your fingers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to rearrange words and say them out loud or get actors to table read them in order to just fix that.
This is what I will say about this. Do what you want, but do not, and I repeat, do not have Venom, no matter what blinking gender he is a part of, make out with someone else and then transfer yourself to him. Because that scene, I didn't need to see it. I didn't need to see it. And quite honestly, it's like...
No, you're correct.
He's like, oh yeah, let's make out, and then I'll come through your throat, and that's how I'll get back in. No.
Yeah.
What, you don't need it.
No, that's so odd. No, you're absolutely right.
And it's like they've purposely gone for Morbius, we're making him an actual vampire, and not having the things on his hands.
Oh yeah, are we
because
sure
we want to
that
make
he
it
doesn't
accurate.
have that?
It's rumoured. I don't know whether it's confirmed.
I don't like that. Make him a living vampire, right? There's a difference between him and the other vampires. He's a living vampire.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Why go to the extent of being like he's going to be an actual living vampire, but then in Venom we've just had him make out with his symbiote girlfriend in order for him to become the symbiote
also,
again.
Didn't they do the symbiotes too quickly? Right? Like, aren't they like throwing content out there? Like the fact that we had Riot in the first film, I'm like, okay, fine, use a big thing from Venom comics to to sort of, bolster the viewership from like nerds and fans and stuff like that from fandom. But like the second movie doing Carnage already, the offspawn of Venom,
and possibly Spider-Man.
And possibly Spider-Man also. But I'm so sure that's going to be a cameo.
Yeah, I agree. But like to have Carnage so soon and then be like, also Spider-Man's in this, then it's just like, yo, just focus on one thing.
Also, why is Woody Harrelson Cletus Cassidy?
Bro, why is
like why
is I mean, I could go as far to say why is Tom Hardy like Eddie Brock? Like, I didn't mind the performance, but
I prefer that from what we got in Spider-Man 3.
I prefer him to Topher Grace.
Yeah.
I'd choose him over Topher Grace.
Any day.
Like, Topher Grace, not a bad actor. Pretty good. No, I'm not going to diss him. But as Venom, I'll say no more.
So we're never going to get the Venom origin from the comics now. Because Spider-Man will have never been to an alien planet and,
the only
used a fake
origin
suit
we'll
machine
get
to get a Venom.
The only origin we'll get is why he has the spider. But even then, Spider-Man's logo currently is that'd look weird on Venom.
Yeah. See, I don't know what they're gonna do with that, but I definitely know that they're doing Carnage very early. Now, if they get rid of Carnage by the end of this film, I think that's gonna be a mistake, because Carnage is a big part of Venom's storyline in general. It's Venom's offspring, and the way the symbiotes use their offspring is that their offspring is always stronger than them. So that's how they do it. They create better offspring than they are. But then Venom and Carnage become enemies through this process of like, this is, of course, my offspring, but then I'm fighting for the good guys and he's, with a crazy person and he wants to be fighting for the bad guys. So like, they become enemies. But this is the second movie. Why does Venom have a child already? Like, I don't get it.
It's easy to say, like, it's easy, like, I can guarantee you it'll be a... Maybe I'll take back this statement in the future, but as of right now, I can guarantee it's going to be such a throwaway line. I'm like, it was this, and then bam, done.
Yeah, no, I know for a fact it's going to be that Venom somehow creates his offspring. I'm not sure how it's done in the comics. I think they like self-reproduce, but Venom's going to have his offspring, and then like he's going to be either aware or unaware of it. But then that time that Eddie goes to visit Cletus in prison, that's when like his offspring leaves Venom and goes to Cletus or whatever. That's how they're going to explain it away or whatever. I just think it's a bit early to do that storyline, and whether they're going to do that storyline well.
Yeah.
As you know, I hate Avengers Age of Ultron, not because it's a terrible movie, but it is a terrible movie. but because of what they did with it. Like, it's
like honestly,
it's not a comic.
Like, personally, I enjoy it. Yeah, like, personally, I enjoy it, but like, I completely understand that it's not an age. It's not.
Yeah, it's not the Age of Ultron. The Age of Ultron is a specific story from the comic books, and I'm not saying they had to hit every note on the head, but the story was so warped and so changed. It wasn't. The only thing they did with it was the vision stuff.
Bro, if they called it Weekend of Wonder, right? Shit title, but it makes more sense. Yeah. Does it not make more sense? Weekend of Wonder.
Yeah, Weekend of Wonder. Yeah. Or Meeting with the Maximoffs.
Literally, bro, it's like shit titles, but makes more sense when describing the film.
Yeah, definitely. I think, but yeah, that's the thing with, like, I don't want Let There Be Carnage. Oh, what a name, by the way. I don't want Let There Be Carnage to be the next Age of Ultron, where they take the character and then just butcher all the storylines, like try to do specific storylines with them. Because Let There Be Carnage isn't any specific story from the comics. Like, that's not the name of anything specific, not that comes to mind for me anyway. But I don't want them to try to do a story from the comics and then butcher that.
Do you want to know what I feel like they're doing? I feel like they have an idea for even maybe like, you know, like a Venom 3 or like some sort of film in that, you know, multiverse.
Yeah.
But I feel like they have an idea for that and they're just trying to get to that, and therefore they might like kind of be a bit more careless with what's going into it.
Yeah. Throwaway characters, but
I don't know, bro.
think. Yeah, I hope this isn't a throwaway character. I'm excited for all the new stuff. You know, rumors about Sinister Six are still floating about. Spider-Man 3 is, for me, I'm super excited for it. How We Left Spider-Man 2 is going to be great. But I think before we wrap up, we should announce what we're going to be watching next week. So I think, if you'll agree on it, Bloodshot, are we still going to try and watch Bloodshot next week? Give our review on that?
Bloodshot, bro.
Yeah, Bloodshot, okay.
Let's go for it.
Okay, Bloodshot, variant comic, I believe. And it's Vin Diesel. So we're going to see Mr. I Am Groot
Diesel.
take on a different comic book character. But yeah, we'll watch that next week. So anyone who's listening currently, if you want to watch that as soon as possible, you can buy it on Amazon Prime, I believe. And we will be giving you the review next week. But apart from that,
I'm excited.
Is there anything you wanted to say before we wrap this up and you can get to where you need to be?
Let's not forget to install heaters in the Batcave because I have frostbite.
Right. We will get heaters for next week. I'll have a word with Sir Bat of the Man. I'm tighter with Robin. I'll speak to Robin about it. But this has been.
He's a bit of a dick.
Really? You're gonna do him like that? Jesus. Okay, that's controversial.
I mean, he's grey, son. I feel bad for myself for that one.
I mean, yes, and so this has been live from the Batcave, but unfortunately we have to say goodbye. Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for anyone that made it this far. Remember to do all the likes and all the subscribes and all the things that you can do to help out the podcast, whatever and wherever we put this. Thank you for everyone who listened, and cut.